Greetings, everyone. I'm honored to be part of this year's Global Landscape Forum. Africa is immensely rich in biodiversity, but it breaks my heart that it continues to decline. There are ongoing losses of species and habitats and freshwater ecosystems, and their biodiversity are especially threatened. This devastating reality is mostly driven by a combination of human-induced factors. But it is not too late. Indigenous knowledge is critical to biodiversity conservation. Many indigenous peoples in Africa are situated in areas vast of biodiversity. Previously, although being only 6.2%, indigenous people were perceived as resource users, but are now recognized as guardians and custodians of over 80% of nature. Their traditional livelihood activities, such as pastoralism, fishing, herding, weaving, and carving, significantly contribute to sustainable development. Unfortunately, these occupations are becoming increasingly difficult, mostly due to pressure on their lands, non-recognition of their traditional way of life, climate change effects, and other discriminatory factors. Recently, the United Nations General Assembly, for the first time ever, declared that access to clean and healthy environment is a universal human right. And so, we must fight for this right. The post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, to be finalized and adopted at the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity in December, will set an important milestone that will elevate sustainable food systems on the global agenda. The current draft of the framework includes targets that aim to ensure sustainable agriculture management, reduce pollution, pesticides use, and nutrients loss to the environment, ensure benefits for people, including customary sustainable management of wild species, encourage responsible choices, reducing food waste and overconsumption, conserve genetic diversity, and lastly but not least, access to information and knowledge, including traditional knowledge. The framework acknowledges the need for gender equality, gender-responsive approaches, the empowerment of women and youth, and the full and effective participation of indigenous peoples and local community. I continue to be inspired by this forum and its progress in shaping our future. Please continue working to restore degraded land and ensure food security while slowing and reversing the current trend of biodiversity loss. Together, we can help create a future of living in harmony with nature. Thank you.
African traditional knowledge of agriculture can be key to advancement as far as food security is concerned across the region, if emphasis is placed on scaling out of agricultural production as against scaling up. The difference there is that scaling out emphasizes people, making agricultural production a part of what the masses or more people, citizens, want to identify with, while scaling up focuses on investment in technology and commercial large-scale farming. Indigenous knowledge emphasizes scaling out, whereby every African is a farmer. There is no outsourcing of food in indigenous African agricultural communities. And that emphasis will have to be, again, revitalized. So this is all going back to the whole idea of making farming a primary concern of citizens as against depending on government, on investors, on aid agencies to improve farming, or even on loans to improve farming across the region. Another way we can look at this is at indigenous food systems. What do Africans cultivate today? What are the tastes, the acquired tastes across the region that does not fit with what is naturally or easily obtainable within the region? Indigenous agricultural production or indigenous knowledge in agriculture cannot be separated from indigenous food consumption. If Africans have acquired taste for foods that do not grow across the region, then how can that be reassessed? Perhaps we should look at options of substituting with foods that grow in Africa, where those are ways that indigenous food systems can indeed bring about advancement across Africa. There is need to create an intersection between African traditional agricultural knowledge and Western science and technology. The emphasis should be on expertise. The expertise needed to build indigenous agricultural production or food system can be sourced from within communities, within national boundaries across the continent. But Western science and Western technology is very much dependent on importation of expertise from outside of the region. Very expensive expertise needs for loans to be taken, even technology to be imported. But if technological production is not outsourced, it is something that is generated from within the continent, then the intersection will be where Africans can learn, borrow ideas, and be able to build around indigenous knowledge, and not to copy and paste or import wholesale agricultural technology, agricultural expertise from outside of the region to the continent and try to make that work, or try to use those to grow the continent's food production. That has not worked for the past 60 years and counting since independence. There is no guarantee that it will work in the coming years. So there has to be a paradigm shift from scaling up to scaling out based on indigenous knowledge with respect and possibilities of learning from Western technology, Western science, and other knowledge systems that exist.
When the last tree dies, the last human dies. As a child growing up in a small forest community, I really wanted to make sure that the last tree never dies. I knew deep within me, if the worst occurred, I would be the last human to keep the last tree alive. Now, I am even more worried about the impact of climate change. I am worried many livelihoods are being destroyed. Communities are being displaced, habitats are being lost, and severe droughts having serious impact on water availability and food production in Africa. Climate change is threatening our survival and the survival of other living things. We all agree urgent action is needed to address this global challenge, and I strongly believe that at the individual level, a lot can be done to support the process. I may not have all the needed resources to influence change or solve the difficult challenges communities face due to climate change. However, I know as the world seeks to slow the pace of climate change and protect biodiversity and support billions of people, trees inevitably hold a major part of the answer. This is why I have committed myself to raise tree seedlings to support land and forest restoration activities. I believe my little efforts as an individual, nurturing tree seedlings to support restoration activities, is contributing to addressing the climate crisis. There is a popular saying in my village that little drops of water makes the cup full. I strongly believe our individual contributions, no matter how small they are, will deliver the change we desire in this climate crisis if we stay committed. My name is Eunice Japan from Ghana, and I encourage you to start your drop of climate action today.
So my name is Adrian Leitoro. I come from the Rendile community found in Marsabit County, northern Kenya. I'm passionate about conservation and ecosystem restoration that benefits communities and improves lives, but at the same time restoring the ecosystems that are there. The place we work, drylands, most people, the first perception of drylands is it's a very harsh place and a very harsh conditions and everything, but really it supports a lot of life. It's a source of so much life and so much well-being and culture and a lot of other resources. They're home to the largest resources in the continent, and so that for me was my motivation, right? How do we make, and especially those pockets of biodiversity that are found in the dryland areas, these places have surrounding sort of impacts on the dryland ecosystems. So we needed to work on these areas to have that long-lasting impact on the community and of course on the drylands ecosystems. Well, Africa's landscapes, I think most of the videos have been about this beautiful, pristine ecosystems and wildlife, but really the communities that live there are the ones who are responsible for this. So you're only able to see this beautiful wildlife, this beautiful ecosystems, these beautiful landscapes because of the communities that live in that particular, the people who are every day in those ecosystems and interact with the ecosystems every day and live in harmony with these ecosystems. I would actually advise youth to get into restoration work. One, because of there's a lot of opportunity right now to get involved in what is a climate crisis, and we need to do something about it. And so to protect this earth for ourselves and of course the future generations, we need to start now. We don't have the privilege of waiting till we're a bit older to start acting on conservation and ecosystem restoration.
For more African stories brought to you by the African artists and storytellers, do check out the digital gallery in the main conference page. Did you know that there is a connection between wildlife conservation and food security? Journey with us as we take you through an exciting 3D video and photographic exhibition to learn more. Afterwards, we shall have 2 exciting partner-led sessions. Our first session will focus on effective knowledge sharing as a tool for sustainable forest and landscape management, with a focus on sustainability in drylands, the Amazon and Congo Basin. Our second session will delve into mobilizing finance at scale to boost sustainable agriculture in Africa.